everyone, this is Kelly and I am here to take a look at the Pathfinder Oracle deck. This is a deck by Andrew Schwartz, and I have his Bone Tarot as well as his Earthbound Tarot, which is a small deck which I absolutely love. It's it's in my favorite cubicle. And then I really love his the tarot deck that he created as well. I don't use it a lot, but I do use it sometimes. For me, it feels like diving into the water of the High Priestess in an earthy kind of way. Does that make sense? Because it is very earthy feeling, but yet there's this just, you know, right or left of center field. Very often the animals have, if not all the time, the animals have three eyes, and there's just something just a little bit mystical about the animals in that deck. And so it's great sometimes for big like moon energy readings, or just that sort of like, again, like you're gonna dive into the waters of the High Priestess. That's a really good one to pull. So I've had those. He also has a Lenormand deck, which I don't have, but when I'll be honest, this was a quarantine purchase. When quarantine was going on and I was spending too much time looking at decks and things like that, I thought, you know what, I've been meaning to pick this one up. He did a Kickstarter on it a while back, and I've been meaning to pick it up and I just hadn't. So I went ahead and ordered it. And so what intrigues me about this, I obviously love his art. He has, again, a really beautiful earthy vibe to his art that is also otherworldly. And I think that is what really appeals to me about his artwork. Is that it does feel very earthy, very earth-based, but at the same time it also has a feeling of the other world. And so that liminal space between the two is a beautiful intersection, something that appeals to me in a lot of different ways, and I think his artwork inhabits that space quite beautifully. The other thing that I loved about this is that it's a diamond-shaped deck. I wanted to say it's a square deck, but it's actually not. Obviously, a square deck is meant to be this way, but this is a diamond-shaped deck. It is meant to be the idea of a compass that you would be holding, and there are 4 different symbols that are on each of the corners. We will look at that obviously when we look at the cards closer, but the idea for this, from what I was reading, I'm assuming on his website or that type of thing, but his idea for this was, he had been going to a lot of art shows, like taking his art to art shows, and he was at a lot of desert national parks and things like that, and doing a lot of hiking. And so he was really inspired by the palette, which was the palette of the area that he was in, color-wise, was very different than his own natural environment from wherever he's from, and that was really inspiring to him. But also this idea of a compass and sort of going out and navigating your way with a deck. So it was kind of a combination of those things. So it is a triangular deck, and so it is, you know, upright, so to speak. It would be in this position with the I think of it as sort of full moon energy here, and maybe dark moon energy down here. He has this as positive, negative, active, and passive. I've been reading, you know, for me this is more what is in light about this, and then what is in shadow, which being in shadow for me is a little bit different than negative, right? So the word negative means that you would expect, if this comes up like this, that it is a negative, as in a disagreeable or a not good message, but shadow means different things, right? That can mean negative, but it doesn't always mean that. It can just be how things work differently in the light and in the shadow, and those nuances can be expressed there. So I'm kind of looking at it as light and shadow, and then you can see that there are two crescent moons on either side. One is activated. You sort of have a repeat of these symbols, but one is activated and one is that energy isn't activated. And that's really interesting, because if you think about a door when it's active, it's actively opening, versus a door when it's not, then that door is probably closed, right? And it depends on each of the it depends on each of the symbols, how you might read that. So it gives you these options for navigating through the deck with those 4 symbols for each. So the door is expressed in full light, the door is expressed in shadow, the door is expressed when it is passive and closed, and the door is expressed when it is active and open, or maybe in the process of opening, right? So you have each symbol really having 4 different meanings or 4 different expressions. So that takes, I think there's 48 cards. Yeah, 48 card deck, and really multiplies it based off of where that might show up in a reading. Now, as I've just kind of been playing with this, not just for a couple days, this I have been just leaving it in as upright and just playing with the symbols themselves and kind of getting a feel for how they would come up. This was a reading I did for myself today. Today is full moon in Scorpio, so I decided to do a sort of energy as it is, where that's heading into, or the energy that's coming in. I do this with my own deck, which is shaped, right? So you can see this appeals to me. And then sort of where things are headed here with the moon. And so I thought that was neat that the moon showed up, because obviously it is full moon in Scorpio today. I'm really in tuned with full moons. A lot of people are quite energized at new moons. I'm quite energized at full moons, and my energy is down in new moons for whatever reason. That's how I work. So I love this idea of the doors opening into that inner world, into that spiral that the shell can represent, and having that move into this kind of cycle of the moon, and moving into things shifting and changing and cycling. So I just thought it was a really apt reading, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this walkthrough today. So I will pause this in a minute and put these in. I've put them back in alphabetical order. They didn't come in strict alphabetical order, and in fact I think the beetle was on top, because I think that it wasn't that this was the first one painted. I believe I read that was the first card that really started to say this is kind of the feel for what this deck is going to be, started to come into fruition. So I believe the beetle was on the top, which I don't know. We'll just take a look here. I don't know if that's the case. Yeah, no, because alphabetically bat would be here. But when you get it, the beetle's on the top. But I just alphabetized it because that's how the guidebook is. So, and I had already shuffled it and things like that. So I'm just putting it in alphabetical order because I have no clue exactly the order that it was in. So let me take a moment here to put this away, and then we'll come back and take a look at the deck. Okay. So it has a tuck box, as you saw, or two-piece, not tuck box, I'm sorry. It has a two-piece box. It's wrapped to the edge. It's not wrapped all the way through, but it's nice and sturdy. It's not like hard as a rock sturdy, but it is nice. It's going to hold its shape. It's not moving at all. It's got a real nice sturdy feel to it. It has a sort of glossy top to it. It says Pathfinder Oracle Deck, skullgarden.net, created by Andrew Swartz. And then the back of it has the time card on it. Oops, then I have it upside down. And it says the Pathfinder Oracle is a 48-card diamond-shaped oracle deck. Each card has 4 meanings depending on which corner faces upward in a reading. Positive, negative, active, or passive. A guidebook is included with all 192 possible readings. The font's a little bit difficult to read on the texture background, and he has like a drop shadow on it. For my poor eyesight, I don't have my glasses on. That's a little bit, it's a little bit wonky to read, but this is the back of the box, it's fine. This is a deck for bold seekers who aren't afraid to get their claws dirty or sand in their shoes. So that's the box. It came with his card, Andrew Schwartz. He is an artist and illustrator from the lost city of Atlanta. He has his, obviously his Instagram is Skull Garden, and his website is skullgarden.net. And then it came with a little white book. Like, this is a true little white book. It really just starts right out the gate with the first card in alphabetical order, Bat, and it ends with the last card, Whale, and that's it. So there's really no description of the deck. There's nothing even. I would have thought that there would at least have been a page or so on the actual system. It's on the back of the box, but it's not in the guidebook itself, other than the fact that obviously it shows the full as being positive, the circled one as being negative, the full with the moon active, and the lined circle with the moon as passive, but it doesn't have even a single page explaining what that might be, explaining sort of how to work with the system. But you know, it gives you everything that you need here. It's very symbolic, right? And so truthfully, I don't think you necessarily even need to have this, because part of this is to challenge, you know, what is your understanding of Bat? So what would Bat do be like in an active position, right? I'm sorry, in light and shadow. What are the positive aspects of Bat? Their ability to navigate, their ability to communicate, all of this kind of thing. Where if it's in shadow, well, you know, they probably can get thrown out of whack if sound starts bouncing around. There's ways their poor vision could be something that could get them in trouble at sometimes. You know, how would you look at this symbol in that way? If the Bat is active, he's in his element. It's nighttime. He is hearing and navigating the way he needs to. He's able to get food. He's really able to just be fully functional. If he's passive, to me, that doesn't necessarily mean anything that's negative. It just means that he's probably at rest, right? He's probably hanging upside down, and it's just a time of quiet, and it's a time of rest, preparing for the time when he goes active again, right? So I don't think you really necessarily have to rely on, and I think, I believe I either read something by him, but I'm sure he would say the same thing. Guidebook like this is just meant to give you a jumping off point if you get the card in a particular way and you kind of say, okay, well, what would that look like? It gives you something to kind of jump off of, but you shouldn't be hampered by it, and you shouldn't hamper yourself by it either. So it's giving you just an, oh, well, it actually says, maybe this is where I read it. This booklet is meant to serve as a suggestion rather than a definitive guide. The descriptions are to help you view your readings from a different perspective, not to tell you what to do or how to feel. Think of it as an aggressively motivational friend rather than a map and a compass. So that's what he's got on the back of there. So anyway, so that comes with it. It's obviously square and it fits in the box, so everything is compacted into the box, which is nice. The cardstock is beautiful. It's a satiny, almost like a satin. I wouldn't say matte, but it almost feels matte, but it's more like a satin. Smooth. It's not a linen cardstock or anything. It's a smooth cardstock, but it feels really nice. It shuffles. I've shuffled this already a few times, so it shuffles really beautifully. So yeah, I will probably, because this is very earthy, this feels like a lot of my earthy animistic style decks, and so I will most likely color this per each of the cards, the edges, to make a multicolor side, which I do with a lot of my animistic style, shamanistic style feeling decks, because this kind of fits in that color palette and that feel of that type of deck. And I think I've already started to mess up the looking at it in its right side up position. So yeah, so let us go ahead and zoom in. I know the light's a little bit, you can see kind of shadows coming in and out. It's an absolutely beautiful day, and I really don't want to close the curtains. So I do apologize. I'll try to keep my hand from interfering as much as possible, but it is what it is. So here we go. You can see it up close. There's that positive. It's a fully filled in versus the negative, or for me, the shadowed aspect here. And then here you can see that little dot over there is not filled in for passive. For active, that little dot is engaged and active. So whatever comes pointing upward, think about holding a compass, is what is the energy that's engaged in that particular card. So let's give you an idea of what he's given us. So for Bat, in the positive position, Bat hears all and never misses a single wing beat. People are fascinated by your unusual methods and can't deny your results, but Bat tells you to hone in on your goals and never let them out of range. For negative, it says, people fear what they don't understand, and you may find it hard to find your place amongst the status quo. Your methods may seem erratic and may, not erotic, erratic, and may be unnerving to some. Your perspective is often difficult to explain to others. Active, over here, the sun is setting and it's your time to shine. No one else has your unique perspective, and that allows you to catch what others might miss in the dark of the night. And in passive, your work is done and it's time to huddle up to rest and reflect before having a good day's sleep. Again, pretty basic, just kind of giving you a feel for how down and dirty you're going to kind of see these symbols in different ways, and just use that as a way to kind of say, okay, I kind of see where this is going, and then roll with it depending on how these symbols speak to you. And that is always the best way to approach very symbolic, which I consider this quite a symbolic. You just have a single bat, right? Or coyote or rock, or it's not a bunch of keywords here. It's a symbol, very much like cartomancy style decks like Lenormand or Kipper, or these types of things where there's a single symbol that is expanded or is coming through a different lens depending on which compass position is facing up. So it leaves it very open to how, in the nuance of the question, with the nuance of what symbol is showing, is going to, and then also think about when you have cards that are, depending on how you put these in the spread, how are those interacting with each other as well, that could come into play. There's a lot of room to play here, and I think that, to me, that really it piques my interest, because I love that type of interactive energies and symbols like that. So there we have it. That is the bat. You can see the bat does have 3 eyes. Again, that is pretty typical of his style of artwork, at least in the decks that I have. So there we have bat. Here's the backs too, sorry. Obviously, they are, I wouldn't say that they are, reversible, in the sense that there is stuff going on in the background, which I think you can see because of the window being open. There's these swirls, but then there's these elongated swirls. So obviously, there is some, but it's neutral enough, especially because the light is enhancing this, that seeing that isn't going to really give you a lot of hints. You'd have to be really looking close to see which way it was. The other thing is, that doesn't bother me one way or another, because I don't lay cards face down. Typically, I'm always laying them down face up, so it doesn't matter one way or another. The next one we have is beetle, which is, of course, that what I was saying was an important one. This idea of the variety of beetles, the beauty of beetles, surprising strength, and things of that nature. So here we have the beautiful beetle with an eye in the back. Here we have a two-headed bison with a third eye in place. I love bison energy. It's something that's shown up for me a lot in decks. And I have a powerful resonance to... I know people seem to try to stay away from this idea, this kind of terminology of this resonates with me, or I feel resonance here, because I think it's overdone and overused, and so people are kind of getting over the term. But it's a term that works. Like, if something resonates with me, that's a very good word to describe that feeling of having that feeling like the energies are really in sync with my energies in some way. So I don't know. It makes sense to me. So whatever. Here you go for bison. A boulder. I love this because when you think about this in active, right, is the boulder in the process of falling? And passive, it's just sitting there, right? In positive, it might actually give you a step up to get up higher to something else. And negative, it might be a real stumbling block and something that's difficult to get around it. So I love that these types of symbols with the different aspects. Same thing with the bridge. This is a beautiful kind of bridge that you would think about in desert spaces, right? And obviously a bridge allows you to cross areas that you couldn't normally cross, but they can break. There are shadow sides of the bridge as being under the bridge, the trolls under the bridge, right? What's lurking under the shadows of the bridge. But you can also get shade in the passive energy of the bridge. It's not maybe something that we're actively crossing, but we may be able to sit under the shade there and get take a pause there. Passive bridge or non-active just might be there and stable and ready for you to go across, whereas an active bridge, I don't know, that could be a little bit more unstable, right? You have to think about how that might interact for you. The canyon. I love the idea of a canyon because it does have that idea of a passageway. I don't know what he has here. Let's see. Proof that even the smallest resistance can carve its way. It's about, because canyons are carved out through water, right? So this idea of how we are changed just reminds me there's a deck, there's an erosion card. I use the Illuminated Earth Oracle card deck a lot, and that has an erosion card with canyons in it. And so that understanding of how constant energy and movement and things like that can erode and change the landscape, sometimes for better because it creates passageways that weren't there before, but sometimes in negative ways as well. So I think that's really great. We have the cat card, which is interesting. I would have thought it might be a lynx or something like that. I don't think you see a whole lot of house cats in the desert, but you know. But it has that idea of calm and cool and independent, but then negatively it can seem a little bit aloof. He has it as in kind of sitting distant and with your nose up in the air, and so on and so forth. So we do have animals, so I guess you've already seen here we have quite a few animals. I would say it's probably going to end up being primarily animals, but we'll see. We have landscape things such as boulders and bridges and canyons. Here we have caves. I guess I'll start making some piles. Here we have cave, which is amazing just to think about actively navigating your way in a cave, or you could be lost in a cave, right? A cave could be in the middle of a cave-in. There's a lot of different ways in which you could read these, and it's a beautiful image. Here we have a cicada. We'll even make an insect pile too. I love cicadas. They're beautiful. Here we have a companion card. So a kind of a strange creature here. Again, a little bit of an otherworldly creature with a little bit of a mysterious being on its back as well. I love the little starlight around its neck and on this wand. So there's a little bit of feeling of magic, a little bit of otherworldliness to this for sure. But you're not alone. You're going, you have somebody at your side. We have there's a couple cards. I've never been fond of cosmic egg cards. I guess I need to sit with the energy of a card. Let's read it. It's in a lot of, it's not like this is something new. This is in quite a few decks. And every time I see a cosmic egg, I feel a little bit like, what? Like, why do we have a cosmic egg here? I don't even understand this. And I feel like it's just because I haven't set with the concept behind it. So let's read this. Positively, the cosmic egg is the beginning and the end of what is and is not. Everything that can be and cannot be, the complete and total. So it's like source. I guess, and at least in this, in his guidebook, it's kind of like source or spirit. Negatively, you will never be able to fully comprehend even a fraction of the information in this or any other universe or dimension. There's always going to be more that we don't know than we do, right? Actively, the cosmic egg is always in a state of activity. Everything moves and vibrates. You just might not be able to see it or from your perspective on your pale blue dot. Passive, you aren't outside of all of this looking in. Neither are you inside looking out. You are part of and also the entirety of the cosmic egg, as much as the smallest tardigrade or the largest star. You are not a stranger here. So it seems to be like source or spirit or that spark of divinity. It seems to be the concept behind the cosmic egg. So I do like that, but I don't know. It's just a symbol that's never deeply resonated with me that I just probably need to set with. Cosmos. See, for this, I would think of Cosmos, I guess, the way that, you know, some people focus on the cosmic egg. Although I suppose this is the universes, whereas this is more about the entire universe maybe that we are in. I'm not sure. So I would sit with these. I could almost leave the cosmic egg out and just have the cosmos. I believe that's how it is in the Illuminated Earth. There is a cosmos card, and that's kind of how I work with that symbol. So I'm not entirely sure that I would need both of these cards, and I would probably resonate better with just the cosmoses there. But if somebody has a better understanding of the difference between the cosmic egg versus the cosmos, I would love to hear it in the description. So then we have the Coyote, which I think is amazing to have. Of course, this is more of a deserty. Coyote stories are some of my favorites. There is obviously such a trickster energy to the Coyote, but also wise, and there is compassion and there is wisdom in Coyote stories. It's something that I focused a lot on. I did a couple Native American lit classes, and I had an amazing teacher. She spoke Ojibwe because she was of the Anishinaabe, which is where in my family, that little bit of Native American in our family. Let's see what it would have been. My great-grandfather was born in a wigwam, Native American, mother of the Anishinaabe, and he came down the Ohio River on a raft and kind of moved into the Ohio area that way. Anyways, she was just a fantastic experience to be able to talk a lot with her. She was amazing, and obviously they were literature classes, so we were reading a lot of short stories and a lot of folklore and things like that, and I really did a lot of my focusing in on the Coyote energy, and so it's beautiful to have that card there. Here we have the Cup card here. What I love is you can really see the interaction, right? So in the light phase, right, you have the hands expanded, but you actually have active energy of water pouring out, whereas in shadow you actually have that receiving energy here. I'd almost see this, but then it would be sideways, so you couldn't, because it almost feels like active pouring out and receptive receiving. But it's not so much the image as thinking about how hands can actively give and actively receive, you know, or open or passively receive as well. And that act of give and take can certainly have light and shadow in it. And so thinking about the concept there of a cup or a vessel in those different formats can bring a lot of nuance to a question. So this is more like an object, even though it's hands, right? We have the desert itself. Again, a little strange creature. If I took a picture of that and zoomed in, it's not what I would say is human. There's definitely an otherworld feel. We have two moons in the sky. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore in this desert, but I do love the concept of the desert. There is a beauty and a power to desert scenes and to desert energy that I think is really beautifully encapsulated in the whole deck. We have a door here. I love this. Is the door open? Is the door closed? We talked about this. Is it open? Is it closed? Is it opening? Is it closing? You know, is it active in any way, or is it just sitting there waiting for you to open the door? So much you could do there. We have fire. I don't think there is an element card for each of the 4 elements, but I'm going to set this aside, although flood would be water. We'll see. We'll see. Fire, we have flood. You know, we've got waves here. We have interesting things going on here with stars in the inside. It's really beautiful. We have this beautiful flowing motion here, and then underneath, and then the waves on the top. So there's a lot of energy to this card. It's really quite beautiful. We have flower. This one, I don't think it's just this one. We'll see. The artwork for me on this one stands out from the rest because you do have this white background and then this very just bold lotus in the middle. It feels like it sets apart from the rest of the deck that have full backgrounds. And so it kind of stands out artistically from the rest of the deck in a way there. That may end up to come to some nuances whilst reading it as well. I certainly feel a lot of lotus energy here, which is something that I work with a lot and resonate with, and so I'm glad to have that energy. But just it doesn't, I don't think any of the other, all very rich in color, and then you have a stark kind of almost rainbowy on the black and white, so it just kind of feels like it stands out. This may have been I know there were extra cards in the Kickstarter. There were 2, I think, that were like, and I don't know what they were. My guess was, well, wait till we get to it, but there's a UFO that I think was perhaps added in, and maybe the cosmic egg. I have no clue because I wasn't involved in the Kickstarter, but maybe this one was. Anyways, I love that there's a fox. Again, we have that split 2 heads with the extra eye. We are in a liminal space here, and I think that that is really beautiful. In this deck, I think it works beautifully in a shamanic-y, earthy, animistic style deck, which, as I said, his other decks are similar, especially his Bone Tarot, in that you do feel like you're in that liminal space. Some people find it uncomfortable. I think it maybe should be a little bit uncomfortable because you're not in your comfort zone with your feet firmly on this side, right? You're in that liminal space there, and you probably should have that sense of that's going to cause you to see things from fresh perspectives. So I love that. Here we have fruit with a mushroom. I love this image of the mushroom here. So we have flowers and fruit, right? So different parts of that. I'm making lots of piles. I love this card, the goal, right? There's that, you know, if you play games, a lot of times when you're in sort of like open world games, and you're looking for where you're on a quest and you're trying to get somewhere, there's often some sort of mode that you can get into where it kind of shines this bright light down like this, saying, you know, this is where you're trying to reach. You know, figure out how you're going to get there, but here's where your goal is. So it just really made me smile when when I saw that. And so I love that as the, what is your goal? Where are you trying to navigate to? Are you trying to get through the desert? Are you just wandering? Like, what is your overall goal? I think that's a great concept to have in a deck. Here we have the beautiful Hawk card. Love that. Home. This is also interesting. It kind of, it reminds me of the monster Lenormand a little bit, where it's like, oh, it's the ship, but then there's the Kraken that's coming around it. There does seem to be little glimpses of alien nest. So maybe the UFO was always there, right? The little creature in the companion definitely is not of anything of this world. The little creature that was on the desert, I think it was, definitely wasn't something from this world. And there were double moons. We have this home, so you almost just see, oh, look at that beautiful little tent, and you're kind of making a home. But if you look over here, there's like a tentacle or something is coming through from another dimension. That's how I see it. Which I think is pretty awesome. So we have the concept of home. Key cards I love. You see this a lot in cartomancy style decks that have that symbol of the key. And is it a lock that's waiting for a key, or is it the actively having the key there? That type of energy. I like the keyhole and the key being there, because depending on, of course, how you read that, you could be trying to find the right key, or you could be trying to find the right hole for the key that you have. So I love that concept, or the object of a key. We also have a door card. Also, those two coming together would be pretty cool. We have a moon. I know we also have a sun card, so I do like, again, nice little sets like that. We have the moth card for transformation, although I think cicada could also be used there. Mountain cards in a lot of cartomancy, love that. It's a challenge to get around it. It's an achievement to get it to the top. There's a sense of power and endurance in mountains. So I think it's a beautiful piece of the landscape. Little mouse, love it. Is it stealing away things like you see in like Lenormand, or is it just kind of burrowing and going about the business and working hard in that busy energy of a mouse? There's a lot of ways you could go with that. So we have the little mouse. Here we have a prism. I guess this kind of feels a little bit similar also to that. Are you reflecting, or are you receiving the light that's coming in, or are you shooting light outward? Like, there's a lot you could do with that. Prism. Here we have a quill used for writing. It almost looks like there's a drop of blood here, so that could be really powerful. A quill could also be about our voice and communication and things of that nature. So we have quill. Here we have the beautiful raven eye. Of course, I'm thrilled to have a raven. Love the double raven with the eye. A road card is amazing. Again, this is the journey that you are on, that you are navigating. It's beautiful. Again, we have that double moon reminding us that we are in a different dimension. We're in a different landscape. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to find this more topical. I'm making piles. I love the salmon here. I love the all of the like shooting stars or asteroids around it. Salmon in Celtic lore is about gaining wisdom and things of that nature. So I love having a salmon in this deck. Love the seed. So we have the seed, we have the flower, and we have the fruit. So we have a bit of a cycle there of growth, or different parts of a plant, which I think could turn up in readings in a beautiful way. So I love that. Is the seed dormant? Is the seed activated? Is it being nourished, or is it not being nourished? Is it going to bloom because it's getting the right water or not? There's so much you could do with that. So I love that. Sheep. Again, double with the eye. shell. This has the idea of labyrinth feel and spiral energy, which is so powerful in a lot of animistic style decks. Also, you can hear the ocean with it. So, well, that's you know, random, but I love it. Here we have the beautiful sky card. Snake is a wonderful energy to have. Interestingly, does not have two heads, but it almost has lots of eyes all along its back. We have snow, which I thought was so interesting in a desert deck, right? It's such a deserty deck. And then to have like snow, like this isn't just a little bit of flurries, like there's snow on the ground. It would almost, I wonder, let's look at it. I wonder if this wouldn't have a little bit of sort of the world is flipped upside down feeling to it. Snow is a reminder to rest and hibernate for the winter. It blankets the landscape. It melts in the spring. Snow can be cold in distance. You're seeing the first flakes of snow. It's just kind of snow energy. For me, because of the juxtaposition of desert and snow, like maybe there, I guess I just assume there's never snow in the desert, but maybe there is. I'm gonna have to look that up. But I would probably read this as a little bit of that tower moment. You know, it's snowing in the desert. You know, that kind of things have gotten a little out of whack feeling to this card is probably what I would do with this, but I quite love it. Storm. So here we've got maybe a better tower card here, but I still think there's something with this. Like this really piques my energy, that things are a little bit off, but how are you going to work with the energy that's there? Whereas a storm is very similar too. You can utilize the energy of electricity. So I'll have to sit with these two to see how I would work with those. And it probably is going to be how they come up in readings as well. But we have, you know, natural weather conditions. We have the sun to go along with the moon. I love to have sets like that. So sun and moon. We have time, which is more of a concept, right? Is it moving or is it feeling like it's creeping along? Tortoise is interesting because you get more of the idea of just the shell. You certainly aren't seeing any of the tortoise. So that concept of home, but it's where you carry it. Also that one foot in front of the other kind of feel of the tortoise, that's that slow and steady wins the race, or are you just really lagging behind if it's in shadow and it's passive? So we have tortoise. We have a tower card. Is that tower? Yeah, or is that, yeah, that's tower. So we have a tower card. I love that. Again, it feels very cartomancia in a maybe more, again, animistic, a little bit more of that earthy, animistic, shamanistic feel, but still in that realm of cartomancy. And by that I mean like Lenormand and Kipper and Sibylla, those types of decks. It has that feel to nuance to it, which I love because that style of reading works beautifully for more introspective style readings as well. And so I love seeing a deck that kind of blends those two things. I think for me it's like a perfect blending. So here we have the tower. We have a tree, which is again often in cartomancy decks. Again, I know that the creator has created a Lenormand deck, and you can feel a little bit of that influence there, and I love it. Here we have the UFO. You know, some things are just unexplainable. What do you think about those things? What are your beliefs around those things? Do you have to have all of the answers? I think this could actually really be an interesting card, especially you see these little bits of unexplained energy in the rest of the card. So it really doesn't just come completely out of nowhere. And then I love the whale card because that does feel almost like a UFO, right? A whale in a desert. Like he's literally over the desert, and he's got three fins to the side and the two eyes. Like there's just something beautiful and powerful and out of place, and yet it feels right in place. So it's not an animal that you would think of in the desert landscapes, or even, you know, you could see the salmons in the rivers of the of the mountainous areas and things of that nature that I'm sure he was doing trails on. Likely there was no whales, right? And so I just think there's something really high priestessy for me about this beautiful energy here. So love it. Okay, so let me scroll out here. I have lots of piles. There are a couple cards that are concept oriented, like time, the concept of home, the idea of having a goal. Even a companion isn't, because that could be an actual person. I think I was making a pile of sort of alien-esque things, but that's an actual thing. These are, again, a bit of conceptual, although there is a cosmos, there is a universe. The cosmic egg, perhaps you could say, is more of a concept, whereas the cosmos is part of the physical world. The UFO is sort of that unexplainable concept. I think I was just pulling these out because I was seeing these are sort of more flood and fire, a storm, so you would see that. You do have some energy that could be throwing things off, like a flood or a fire or a storm or snow, you know, those types of almost atmospheric weather patterns of the earth, right? Weathery type things. Actual things like skies and trees and roads and the desert and caves and boulders, bridges and canyons, right? And then you do have animals, so mostly animals, a couple insects with the moth and the cicada and the beetle, some birds, some land and some water animals that are in there. I think I was just keeping these out because there was the flower, the fruit, and the seed, those different, that can give you some timing as well, where you are at in the story. And then just kind of objects like cups and doors and keys and prisms and quills and shells and towers and a companion, somebody who's there with you, like that kind of thing. And this was just sun and moon, which I think go more with the nature itself. So why do I do that? I get that question a lot. It just helps me to process sort of how is a deck set up? What is it? Does it have a preponderance of one thing over another? I would say it has a preponderance of, I don't know why I stuck those in there. These are more nature. I would say it has the most of animals and insects and like life on Earth, as well as quite a good number of sort of nature. The world that we live in, the weather patterns and weather system, and then animals probably make up the most, with a few just kind of random objects, and then a few conceptual ideas. Of course, we're using all of these as concepts as well as symbols. They're not just a moth, it's a symbol for something more, right? So everything's being read that way. But hopefully that gives you just a little bit of a feel for what the deck is made up of. So 48 cards. Let's give them a shuffle. Now, obviously, these are meant to, they don't really bridge well because of the square factor, I think, more than anything. A little bridge, baby bridge there. They are meant, so you'd almost need to rotate them or give them a good wash. For things that are, supposed to be using reversals, and it's not a really big deck, I like Deste, it uses reversals, so I do like to give it a good wash because it just lets everything move and play around as you just kind of wash it and think about or talk through what it is that you're doing the reading on. I think it just gives an opportunity for the cards to really move. You can obviously shuffle overhand and then every so often like rotate, and that's going to give you the different sizes as well. There's no spreads that come in the guidebook. I don't know if he has anything, you know, talking about different spreads and things like that. I'll have to go and look. But in terms of what you get when you purchase it, the guidebook or the little white book doesn't have anything like that. But it's, you know, it's kind of made, remember, you know, what you're laying down and is pointing up is going to be the nuance to the card. So for example, here is bat, and that would be in that shadow aspect of bat. And so what people are terrified of bats flying down and getting in their hair. You know, there's all kinds of people kind of cringe with bats, vampires, all the lore that springs out around them. So you're looking a little bit more at the shadow aspect of that. You could then, you know, you could play around with, let's just see. Again, I'm just gonna, you can do like a 4 card. For sure, it's kind of, you know, gloriously made for a 4 card. You could also do a 5 card with spirit in the middle. If I was doing a 5 card, I would do then, you know, for an elemental, so spirit, then I would have fire, and I would have air, and I would have water, and then I would have earth. That's just how I do elemental spread. So you can do that spread like that. You can, I think I saw maybe on Kickstarter or something, like a image, like it was like an animation or something. Let's just get some new cards just so you can see cards, where you might have what I think, you know, is fairly typical, which would be the 4. You're doing a 4 card reading, I think would be fairly typical, but then you could also lay another layer over top of it. I don't remember how I said it. Was almost like this, and then like this, and like this, and like this. It was some kind of animation like this where you could kind of do layers that way as well. So, I mean, I think one of the fun things about different shapes decks is that you do have a little bit of fun. You can also, you know, do some readings with what's showing up here in them. If you're doing a 4 card like this, obviously you could be doing this as fire, air, water, earth, in those different aspects in life, but you could also then get a message by what's touching in the middle of this. We have all of this full positive energy with a bit of receptive energy. And where is that pointing? Well, it's pointing to the east. And for me, the east is new beginning. So maybe there is this a little bit of a compass reading that you can do in the middle. Just like with geomancy, when you do a house chart, you can do the north, south, east, and west and get like this little message underneath it. I feel like you could do that. You have a lot of active energy, but the potential, there's a passiveness that's not activated yet in the east where things begin. So that would tell me there's still a lot going on here before we're going to kind of open up to new things. If you were looking for something new, it would seem to me like it wasn't quite time for something new to come into play because all of this energy is going there, right? So you could do sort of a secondary reading off of that middle card. And even if you wanted to look, say, between fire and air, and see this idea of how are these two things that are these connecting points, what do those connecting points tell us about those particular cards? So it's, you know, obviously it's going to be fun to play with this and see what comes up, and how, you know, how those sorts of little nuances. But I think there's just a lot of room in this deck to play with those kinds of things. It's like he's given you the tools and a kind of new way to have the cards interrelate, and so now you just need to kind of actively play and see how you could use those. So let's just do an elemental reading because I think this type of deck lends itself to an elemental or a directional reading. For me, a directional reading would be obviously You know, you'd have the position of north, you'd have the position of east, you'd have the position of south, and you'd have the position of west. So for me, the new things, what's the start of things, is obviously of a journey. So this is, for me, directional things are really about the linear movement of a story, your story, where you're going with something. And so to have, say, home in the passive possession part, right? You're not quite feeling at home in your surroundings yet. You're kind of still waiting for that. That's not fully activated. That energy's not there. In the south, which is where all of our challenges are for me, this is where we're writing most of the story down here in the south. We have the whale in shadow. And so what does it mean for you to have the whale energy in shadow? Whales to me are big and powerful. It is also, again, for me, a very high priestess energies whales are. When you think about their singing and the knowledge that can be imparted, and the memories that they have, and things of that nature. And so having that in shadow is something that's not fully illuminated. There's stuff for you to learn, perhaps before you're going to get that down. Now, you know, you can do something different with whale. Like, I haven't looked to see what he says about whales, so let's take a look. In shadow, or he has it negative, whale is possibly the most deadly predator in this deck. You can be awe-inspiring and downright gruesome in pursuing your goals. It can be lonely at the top of the food chain. Like, it's so huge, and there is an isolation in that. Most things are going to run, right, when a whale comes. I just read whale energy a little bit differently from that, but you can go there, right? Just what works for you. What does whale say to you? We have the sun in full effect in the west. So the west is things kind of coming into fruition, kind of wrapping up the story in many ways. And so this is where the most energy is. The sun is here in its positive aspect. This is in shadow. This isn't activated. And so we have that. So, okay, right now it's about really wrapping up some energy. There's a lot of power here to be able to end the story the way that you want, with the symbol of the sun in the position of the west, right? And then when we go to the north, for me, that is very connected to it's that pause and that rest and that period of time of reflection. And we have the fire in active form, taking all that you've learned here and being able to use that actively and creatively, with the fire combined with active energy. That this is going to be fodder for your creative pursuits in some way. When we look here into the center, right, we have shadow, and we have active and receptive here. So we have in the beginning parts and the kind of moving pieces part, when things are fresh in the story, when things are active and moving, there's a lot of shadow that's there. And so that setting sun, bringing things to a resolution in the west, is what's active here. And right now, until we bring that to a resolution, we're not going to get perhaps to that creative energy just by looking at those little center moons there. That's probably how I'll sit with reading this deck for a while, because I think there's a lot to be given. I think we could still, if something piques our interest, or if the question really relates to how is that reflection and these two interacting with each other, and so on and so forth, you could do the points as well. But I think for myself, just reading the card based off of its north direction, which is what you're supposed to be doing, and then reading that center four, I think gives a secondary nuance reading, and that's probably where I would set with in terms of using this deck right now for a while. I think this is a really fantastic deck. It really speaks to me. There is a system that's there. There is in some ways suits, right? You have a whole suit of active energy, a whole suit of passive energy, you have a whole suit of things in light and a whole suit of things in shadow, but they also are all of the cards, right? So it's really got I think a beautiful system. And then again, the shape and the way that the corners touch, I think can also then bring that other layer. And so that kind of thing really excites me when people are doing things like this, where they're really thinking a little bit out of the box. They're using the tried and true understanding that we are, as human beings, are symbolic, and we see these things and we can roll with them in many different ways. And I see that layer of what I call cartomancy style reading in there, which really speaks to me as well. And then you see this fresh interplay with the directional corners like this. I just think it's really great. Really, like, 4 thumbs up, because in this world we don't just have 2 thumbs, I don't believe. So 3 thumbs up or 4 thumbs up on this. I'm really excited to spend some more time working with this deck. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I'll put the link below. Again, when I purchased it not too long ago, there was a sale going on. So I'll try to get this up quickly. If I look and see that it is still going, I'll try to get this up quickly in case you want to take advantage of that sale. So I'm gonna stop this and probably go ahead and color the edges, and then I'll wrap up. I'll just show you what the colored edges ended up looking like, but this is how they come, so that you're not thinking they're going to come in rainbow colors. So I wanted to do this before I did that. So I'll click of fingers, be back. It will take me a little longer than that. Okay, so here you go. This is what it ended up looking like. I didn't like split it up in any particular way. I just kind of grabbed the card and grabbed something that was close to it. You know, these are the colors I ended up using, not always because it was a perfect match or anything. So for example, you know, there might have been a lot of blue in the fox, but I went with like a brown or red or gold tone because of the fox. Or as this card was mostly brown, but I actually went with turquoise with the water. So I don't sit there and give it a whole lot of worry or concern. I try not to use too many colors. This one in the Weaver's Oracle, I used a lot of colors on that one. Probably more than I normally use, but on those two. There's also quite a lot of this light color, but that's the way it ended up looking. I don't know really how much you can tell from this, but I'm really happy with it. I think it suits, you know, the energy of the deck when you're even fan it out like this. The color tones really suit that, so I'm happy with it. I think it looks great. These are mostly La Plume 2s with just a couple stray tombos in here. This is the same color as that, so most of these are La Plume 2, which I believe are dye-based. Tombos are water-based. Now, I don't have a problem with either one of these on edges. I guess I don't have sweaty hands. I don't even think it's just sweaty. I think maybe some people's chemical makeup reacts to markers sometimes. I don't have any problem with Sharpie. I don't have any problem with Tombow. I don't have any problem with La Plumes. I riffle shuffle. I don't find that they wear off particularly quickly, but it's also really easy if a deck just starts to get, you know, worn or chipped or something like that, to throw another coat on it. I think I've only done that to one deck. And it was an all black deck. I can't remember what it was. It was a deck I riffle shuffled a lot, and it wasn't the best card stock. And so that kind of refreshed and picked up, you know, kind of filled in the chips. But for the most part, I have a lot of success with edging this way, and I don't really have any issues. But that, you know, that's me, so everybody has to figure that out for their own selves. I really recommend, if you're nervous about edging or you're not sure how your hands are going to react, you know, get a cheap deck of playing cards and edge it up with the marker of your choice and shuffle that around. You know, walk around, shuffle that for a bit, and just see, is it coming off? Now you can see it on my hands right now because I just edged, but once I wash my hands and this is set, I don't get any transfer into my hands. But other people can have other experiences, so, you know, check that out for you. But I'm really happy with it. So okay, now I really am going.